Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Real Podcasters. This is a weekly podcast where myself, Regan, and my beloved co-host, Dan, talk about all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. This week, we are going to be discussing Ahsoka, Season 1. Possibly Season 1. We don't really know yet. It hasn't been officially confirmed if it's one of two, but for all intents and purposes, this is Season 1. And before we properly kick things off, I'd just like to say, if people aren't subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe. Yeah, please.
Please.
We'd really appreciate it. Currently, I think the last time I checked the analytics on YouTube Studio, I think about 85% of listeners on the last couple of episodes are not actually subscribed. So
please,
yes, let's try and lower that number. Let's let that be the only number that I want to be lowered on this podcast beyond the runtime, which, depending on what it is, that can vary. But yes, definitely subscribe if you're not, and follow us on our social media channels as well. That would really help us out. But whatever, let's get into a bit of Star Wars, because it's been a little while since we've spoken about this franchise. I think the last time was Mandalorian Season 3, I think. I don't think there's been anything else of note, or anything, actually.
Don't think so. I think last time we did anything Star Wars video related was Book of Boba Fett. I think that was the third episode we did or something.
Third I think it's third. Yes, because after that is the video game movie stuff. And before that was Scream.
Yeah.
It was. We'll say it was. I can't actually remember. It's a while ago now. It's literally a year and a half we're talking about. But yeah, talking about Ahsoka, certainly one of the more anticipated things to come out of 2023, if not with a little bit of trepidation as well, given the fact that, well, the last couple of Star Wars things haven't exactly been, we'll say stellar, to be honest.
Yeah, it's probably the best word for it.
That being said, I was still quite excited for it, given the fact that, it's Ahsoka Tano leading a series. I've always liked this character from the Clone Wars. I loved the episode of The Mandalorian with her in it as well. It's still probably my favourite one of them all. And just hearing about what might happen with this series, namely Hayden Christensen, I was curious, if not just a little bit worried. So for those who don't know what this series is, obviously spoilers, we're going to get into all that. This very much follows on from Mandalorian Season 3, with Ahsoka still trying to hunt down the possibility that Grand Admiral Thrawn, as in the most blue character that has ever blued,
he's literally bluer than Avatar. And
both of them are owned by Disney. They're just trying to out-blue each other, as it turns out.
They got the blue color palette
just smothered it everywhere.
Didn't
they? So Grand Admiral Thrawn is the latest threat to not just this galaxy, but really every galaxy, which suddenly sounds like a Marvel thing, if I'm completely honest. It's this is a threat for every galaxy.
Kind of just sounds like Thanos all over again, really. Except that Thanos just happens to be a rogue Imperial Admiral in exile.
And instead of purple, he's blue. And he doesn't have gloves this time.
Yeah.
Very, very different. But, yeah, that's essentially what's going on. This also continues on from some storylines in Star Wars Rebels. I will say this right out the gate. I've got a passing knowledge of Rebels. I know bits and bobs, but immediate assumption is that, Dan, you know absolutely nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. If my face didn't already give that away, no. Don't know anything about Rebels.
So,
and I've been seeing, the typical Star Wars fan base thinking, you need to watch Rebels to understand the character of Ahsoka.
No, you don't.
Do I though?
Well, no, because... Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I'm opening up the review with saying that only because I do have issues with this series. I do actually really like the show, to be honest. But there are certain issues that I've got with it that some could suggest is just coming from someone who hasn't seen Rebels. I've seen, literally the first episode and most of the stuff with Ahsoka, funnily enough, and bits and bobs of the ending. But for the most part, I don't have an emotional connection with any of the characters until this series. So I'm putting that out there before I start getting into my issues with it. But I am curious.
Yeah, just clarifying.
Yeah. I am curious, though, on your thoughts, especially considering that, well, again, next to no knowledge of this, and also less of a Star Wars fan than me, even though I'm decidedly less than I used to be, but that's just because I'm just hot-wired to assume mediocrity when it comes to Star Wars these days.
Well, to be honest, I mean, quite lately I've been enjoying some Star Wars stuff, not just like Ahsoka, but I've just been kind of playing through the whatever year Battlefront.
You could have just played the original games, but no, instead
right.
you had to play the newer ones.
Well, I just got the EA like pass thing, so I think it's only like $3.99 a month or something like that.
Okay then.
So like you get like the deluxe editions of Battlefront 2 and Battlefront. So I haven't played the multiplayer side of it, but if you're like me and you're just terrible at games, you just tend to avoid it. Okay, but no, with Ahsoka, pretty much my only knowledge of Ahsoka is kind of like yourself, just passing knowledge of like Clone Wars, not Rebels. Rebels is completely new to me. I will get to watching it at some point, but not in a rush to. It's pretty much just like Clone Wars-y stuff that I know from. And obviously Mandalorian Season 3, which is still one of my favourite Mandalorian episodes, by the way. It is just so cool. With this, though, this is definitely the best like Star Wars series out, but besides Mandalorian. Mandalorian is still better, I think. But this isn't far behind, in all honesty. And considering I went in pretty blind, especially like with, as you say, like the Admiral and stuff like that, and like no knowledge at all. And I really liked it, actually. That's a 4 out of 5 from me.
Wow.
To be honest. And that says kind of everything, because, I was really, like, quite defensive of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I look back and I'm like, wow, Obi-Wan Kenobi was actually quite bad.
Yeah, it's funny how I've never rewatched Obi-Wan Kenobi outside of that random time. I think it was earlier this year. Might have been. Or it might have been last year at some point.
Only time I've ever rewatched that is for everybody knows that series 4, really.
That bit.
The fight.
I've never rewatched Book of Boba Fett, because that one, I think just makes me mad anytime I think about it. And Mandalorian Season 3, I have only rewatched the first 2 episodes exclusively to fix the lighting on the TV so that I could actually watch it and see what the hang was actually going on. But otherwise, funnily enough, I've never rewatched the Jack Black and Lizzo episode on repeat, funnily enough. There's probably a reason for that.
I can't actually think the last time I watched Mandalorian. I think it was probably a while ago.
But I'm quite happy to rewatch the first 2 seasons pretty easily. But
yeah,
I'm kind of similar to you. This is easily the best Star Wars show for a while, but based on what's come previously, it's not saying much. And I'm not counting Andor because I've only watched the first episode.
I haven't watched it yet.
I might watch it next year. I might suddenly decide to do that as a thing. I don't know. But yeah, this is certainly the best it's been for the last couple of years. That being said, it was really slow at start. I wouldn't say I found it boring by any means, but I really struggled to care a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a slow burn. I think even the first episode is a bit of a slow burn, I think.
That being said, come episode 4 is when I really started to care again. And pretty much from that point on, I think the rest of the show was pretty spot on. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say like a 4 out of 5. I might, because I have certain issues with it. It's easily a 3 out of 5 at the very least, and there's some stuff I truly love, like really, really love. And some of the issues I've got could just be me. Could just be me being nitpicky.
I mean, it's you. You're going to be nitpicky.
I'm going to be nitpicky. That's just the only franchise I'm going to be the most ridiculously nitpicky. and everyone else will be like, "Oh, just shut up, Regan, and just bloody
colour
enjoy
scheme
it."
isn't the same as Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly.
Just proving a point.
I've done something like that before. But overall, I still really like it. I think the performances are absolutely terrific. It looks spectacular. The score as well really grew on me. And it leaves it in a place that's really interesting, if not really frustrating, because there's certain things that they can't do for logistical reasons now, which we'll get into when we talk about casting and stuff. But yeah, overall, I'm definitely on the positive end, and I have rewatched some episodes multiple times. I think we all know which ones. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. So, the first thing I want to address is actually the 2-episode premiere thing. So I watched this week by week. You watched it all in one go.
Yeah, around that, to be honest. I watched. I just finished it when the latest episode came out. So probably like 20, 24 hours, something like that.
It's just crazy how you're able to do that and also just avoid.
Do you know what it is? I haven't
because,
seen one spoiler.
Frankly,
for
the
it,
stuff that happens
like, at all. I don't know how.
I need to know how the hell you actually do that, because
much like the Admiral, I just kind of live my life in exile. Except it's not on a Star Destroyer; it's just a house in County Durham.
So you don't have like a really massive badass organ playing every single time you rock up?
But I don't.
So it's either Grand Admiral Thrawn or it's Davy Jones. I don't know which one. They're both Disney. They're both weird looking. So, but yeah, one thing I've noticed with like the way these series start is that there's always multiple episodes that they put out at once. I don't like that. I noticed it first with Book of Boba Fett.
But isn't that when it like
put out the first two there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then Kenobi did the same thing. I think Andor put out the first 3. I can't remember if Mandalorian did it, like season 3. I actually can't.
I kind of want to say because
but this series did the first 2. It
kind of just wouldn't make sense to just do Boba Fett and then Obi-Wan and then just like have Mandalorian release an episode every week.
Well, that's the thing, because I know why they're doing it, because you can tell I especially noticed it with Kenobi, where you watch that first episode and nothing of note happens. And it doesn't leave you at a point where it's like, okay, I'll come back next week.
Yeah.
There's very little that happens. And in the case with Ahsoka, it's kind of the same thing. And I don't like that as a practice. I mean, it's similar to how I don't like when TV shows put out all episodes at once. Like, I really despise that, because there's not a lot of anticipation for each episode afterwards, because it's just all there, done. Again, that comes down more to personal preference than anything else. But I still noticed this, and I wasn't the biggest fan. Because as I say it, the show starts out
it is
really slow.
It only really picks up in
I
the
did like
last,
certain beats, though.
10 minutes of the first episode, I'd really say. The rest of it is just kind of a pretty slow burn. I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't say I was bored, but I was just kind of like, I guess this is going to be like a slow burner season. Which it's not, actually, when you get, as you say, to get to like that
which on
fourth episode, and it just all kind of gets a bit more caring, as you say.
I mean, episode 1 still has like some good stuff. Like, I do quite like the fight between Shin and Sabine. That's really cool. Even though I was kind of watching it, and then when she gets stabbed by Shin, and I'm just picturing Qui-Gon's ghost just spitting out a drink in the corner, just like, excuse me. That happened to me as well, and I'm here. Why the hell is she surviving?
I say that I honestly thought the same thing. It's just Qui-Gon's ghost, just like...
It's like, excuse me?
Like, absolutely fuming.
Disrespect! But yeah, there was still some good stuff there. And, as we've said, it's the first few just take a while. Episode 4, though, beyond the stuff that happens at the end, I do really care a lot. And one thing I actually really appreciated was actually the lightsaber duels in this season. I think they're some of my favorites in a very long time. They're very samurai-esque,
Yeah.
especially the first confrontation between Ahsoka and Balin. That's like how they just take their
Yeah,
time.
they
They're
don't
just
like
sort of,
rush into it. They're
watching
like sort of
watching
analyzing
each other and
for who's going to make the first move, really. So it is very like sort of like samurai warrior kind of look.
Yeah, I mean, she's very Ronin.
Yeah.
He's quite medieval, especially with his lightsaber. I mean, to be honest, I love the orange lightsaber tint this go around for him and Shin. I think that's really cool. It isn't very easy to notice occasionally. Like sometimes it is just obviously red, but it's a nice sort of visual aid to the fact that they're not Jedi and they're not Sith. Like I find that really interesting. But yeah, I mean, episode 4, the fight is really cool. Seeing D.H. Hayden Christensen almost made me cry. That actually got spoiled for me because the day that episode went out is the day I went to Scotland. And then I was like, right, Dad, we're going to have to get the Wi-Fi because I need to watch this. I'm not waiting for 5 days. So I mean, I'm just sat there on like the bed with the tablet next to me, which is like, all right,
Okay,
come on, Hayden, hurry up. I'm like really, really tired right now. Can I please watch his face now? But I also really like how trippy the show is as well. Like this is some of the weirdest Star Wars that has ever Star Warsed. I was about, yeah, you know what it is? End of episode 4 when Ahsoka ends up in the world between worlds, which I knew about. I knew about that from Rebels. I was just picturing you just being like,
you know those memes with like the math symbols just like going around the person in the meme. Honestly, that was me, mate. I was so puzzled as to. I mean, I was intrigued.
I was picturing that.
I was totally intrigued, but
yeah,
it's trippy.
Yeah, I mean, if we do get to the characters, before we get to Hayden, because we'll have to mention him, I really like Rosario Dawson again as Ahsoka. I mean, that was never going to change. I think she's absolutely terrific. One thing I did notice, and it was something I properly picked up on after people started mentioning it, is that she is incredibly stoic for the first few episodes. She's like very sort of like cold and detached. But that is elaborated on. Like she's very much trying really hard to not get attached to Sabine, who I believe this series retcons so that she's apparently trained to be a Jedi between Rebels and this. I don't believe that was ever supposed to be the case in the animated series. But it makes sense because in the animated series, I believe Sabine has the Darksaber at one point. I was like, oh, great, there's another reference to the Darksaber. Oh, just brilliant. It's fine, it's gone now, it's destroyed.
Clearly not.
No, instead we just got the green lightsaber, as in the best lightsaber. Like, it just is. Green is just the best one. I don't care.
Lightsaber's a lightsaber in my mind.
Fine then, fine. But I like how Ahsoka's journey across the series is that she very much has to shed like that sort of dark legacy that she has with the fact that she's trained by Darth Vader essentially, and she doesn't want to start training Sabine in case that starts happening to her. Because
it's
in
like
her position,
to be honest, it's been a while since I've watched the Star Wars films, but it's like, well, actually, it's Obi-Wan. I'm sure it's Obi-Wan, where it's like I'm not going to train anybody else because of what happened. I'm sure it's Obi-Wan.
Essentially, I mean, I know Luke has that in The Last Jedi as well, but that's less about Vader and more of, well, kind of. But everything's always tied to bloody Vader at this point. But she has that whole thing about her where she feels responsible for him becoming Vader, because even Dave Filoni, who is the executive producer on this series, did a fantastic job. He's a fantastic kind of creator for Star Wars. I've always loved his stuff. He talked about how there's a moment in the Clone Wars when Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order, and then that leads into Episode 3, and he's essentially saying that if Ahsoka hadn't left, there's a good chance that Anakin wouldn't have become Vader. He wouldn't have lost that final personal tie to things. I I like how that's now used in this series where she does kind of feel responsible because like she leaves and then comes back and then all of a sudden everything's changed. And I like the fact that she's able to face that like face to face with the return of Anakin Skywalker.
I'm honestly shocked that
where Hayden
that did
Christensen
not get
actually
spoiled
has
for me.
stuff to do.
I'm really shocked that I don't know how I actually avoided that, because once I saw it, I was like, how on earth did I manage to avoid all of this not getting ruined for me?
The way that I found out was actually the after episode 4, they put out a new poster for the series that featured Christensen on it, and I was like,
See, I was very careful with that.
yeah, I was like, you gave people about 5 hours to watch it, and then you put it on the poster. Like, wow, Disney, wow. But I mean, his inclusion in the series was confirmed a couple of years ago, but he never actually confirmed it himself. I can remember in like an interview when promoting Kenobi, he was like, "I've got no idea. I don't know if I'm in it." And I'm starting thinking, you can't do a Tom Holland, mate.
Well,
you are not very good at this.
It's like better than Tobey Maguire. It's like me in Spider-Man.
Just like, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, like.
But at the same time, like if he was in it, I was excited. But then after seeing how he's got next to nothing to do, bar 2 sequences in Kenobi, I was started thinking, I don't think it's going to be anything interesting. But no, he's got a substantial role for like half of one episode, and then he's got like a couple of appearances afterwards. I'm not gonna lie, even the de-aging actually looks fine. I think it looks absolutely spot on. I think it's just subtle enough, so it's not like he's not playing a Padawan but at age 40 again, as he was in Kenobi. I was like, you don't look like 16 or 17 anymore, mate. I'm really sorry. It's just like something to do with you.
Sorry, Hayden.
Yeah, sorry, Hayden. But yeah, this is honestly the best that I've seen of him as Anakin, and I'm including the prequels. Like he's just well, I mean, because you know, but
incorrect.
There's so many memes of that now. It's brilliant. Like I do really love.
You're telling me?
Yeah, I mean the Rey Skywalker one is just the funniest. Just like incorrect. I did really love though, like when he pops up in the World Between Worlds, I was sat there thinking, okay, I hope we get flashbacks to the Clone Wars, only because I really, really want to see Hayden's Anakin, but in the Clone Wars Jedi armor, because I've always loved that design. Yeah. And you do get to see that, and you get to see young Ahsoka as well, which kind of puts a new perspective on the Clone Wars, because, you know, she's a kid in that series, but it's animated, so it's one thing. Now you've got an actual, like, 14, 15, 16-year-old actress portraying Ahsoka in the middle of a war zone, and you're like, yeah, all of a sudden this is quite dark, as it turns out.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like there's death and destruction going all around her. And I mean, even in that sequences, it is pretty damn dark. There's like a load of dead, like, clone troopers on the, like, the stretchers. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty bleak.
It is nice, though, to finally see, like, clone trooper armor, but physically, as opposed to digitally. Like, it's so weird to, like especially in the first flashback when she wakes up and there's just a single one that runs out of the smoke, and you can just see, like, the shoulder pads just, like, bouncing around because it's actually there. And I'm sat there thinking, it's taken 20 years and we've finally gotten these things physically. Like, god damn
Captain
it.
Rex.
Oh, I mean... Again, most of my knowledge...
When I watched that episode, I saw the reaction of, like, really big-time Star Wars fans, and they were just like...
They went mental. Like...
Yeah, they've wanted this for a long time.
Yeah, they have. But also seeing Hayden's Anakin with a red lightsaber, which was going to happen in episode 3 anyway when he fought Obi-Wan, but then George and his finished wisdom, I was about to say infinite wisdom, it's not, decided, oh no, he's just going to have the blue one again. Hey, you actually get to see that. And it's quite restrained on the Vader stuff. Like, you just see, like, the brief flashes of him as Vader. Like, that shot of him walking away in the smoke and you suddenly see Vader. I'm just like, just Dave.
Oh, I love those bits because it's just...
It's subtle enough. And just that entire sequence of them dueling as well, I really love. And And as I say, she's able to shed all that and is like, no, I'm not you. I'm not going to be you. And then, whatever.
One thing I forgot to mention is, like, even during, like, the Clone Wars flashback, like, even Anakin's a pretty damn dark guy.
Well, I suppose that's
like,
kind of the point.
What if I don't want to fight anymore? It's like, oh, well, die.
Well, that's like
wow.
that because, not to reference The Last Jedi again, but one of the big things I really liked about that is the fact that it finally called out the fact that the Jedi were stupid. Like they were just poor at what they were supposed to do. And while it's not nearly as blunt, this, like, in later stuff...
It calls out how stupid the Jedi are.
Oh, because they are, it was their fault that all the crap stuff happened. And this series also illustrates that as well. Like, even Anakin's like, yeah, I wasn't trained to be this, but you're gonna have to be this because this is what we need to do. And she's like, well, I don't want that to be the only thing I do. And I'm like, thank you. Like you're decidedly more subtle than, like, yeah, they're crap. They're awful. But it does do a really good job with that. Same with the new Republic stuff, which just further shows how utterly incompetent everyone is post Return of the Jedi. Like, it's just like everyone deserved to be blown up at the start of The Force Awakens. As it turns out, they're all just idiots. But that's just me.
But that's just me.
That's just me. That's just how I feel. In terms like the other characters, of course, like the other big one we've got is Sabine Wren in this. I love her introduction, like when like she's on Lothal and like, oh yeah, we're gonna have this big ceremony to celebrate Ezra Bridger as he's vanished because of the script. I haven't seen that bit. And she's not there. In reality, she just like speeder bikes away with space punk music, which is just awesome. And they have actually released
I did
that.
have a bit of a smile on my face from that scene.
Oh, I bet you did. They have actually released.
I did.
They have actually released that track on the scores. I have been listening to it quite a bit. It is actually really good.
Oh, well, I know I'm going to be listening to after this episode's recorded.
Well, to be honest, if I do briefly mention the score, I think it's brilliant. The end title music initially I didn't like, but then I just started humming it. Like, to be honest, while I've been at work today, most of the time I was just humming that, to be honest. Because it's really good music.
I think it's the same with, like, all of them. I mean, I know that, like, Boba Fett we're not a fan of, but, like, even Mandalorian at first, I wasn't too big on the score, but it just kind of drills into your head a bit, and it just sticks with you after that. It was the same for this. I mean, I was just like, score's a score.
Yeah.
But now it's actually like, well, this is a really good score, actually.
Well, I mean, it's the same composer that did it for Clone Wars and Rebels, so I was curious to see what they were going to do. It's Kevin Kiner, I think is his name. That's really, really good stuff. But yeah, Sabine, I really like. I kind of wish by the end, and again, this is just me being Star Warsy, like, nitpicky. I think I would have preferred if she didn't actually have the Force by the end, and she was just a Jedi without it. I thought that would be a bit different, but that's just me asking for something new more than anything else. But the bit I didn't realise was David Tennant as Hu Yang.
See, I noticed straight away because of the accent.
It took us a couple of seconds.
I was like, this sounds awfully like David Tennant. I was like, yeah, it's got to be David Tennant. So I looked it up and surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I was like, he's having a hell of a year now. Like, he's doing this, and then like next month he's got some other low-level show that he's doing. I don't even need to reference which one it is. But he was really cool. But it's one of those things where, like, it's just every single droid under Disney Star Wars just sarcastic and snarky. Because every single one is now, even the ones that don't actually talk, like BB-8 and the war criminal Chopper.
It just makes me laugh so much, and it's bad that it makes me laugh. Like, it's the fact that he's even referenced as a war criminal.
Oh,
as well.
It isn't even just from this show. Like, apparently he was like that in Rebels as well. And I'm like, does everyone just call him a war criminal? And I'm like, yes, he is.
It's like, He's a droid. What could he do? And then I'm actually like quite curious as to what he's done. If he's been labelled a war criminal, I'm kind of dread to think now. Actually,
Yeah, I kind of do as well. But he's really cool. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Hera as well, also really good.
yeah.
Let's address Ray Stevenson though, because this is honestly just tragic.
Without crying, hopefully.
Careful.
Can already feel myself having tears.
Well, that's the thing, because it's the fact it was only like a couple of weeks before the series even started as well, and he's bloody brilliant. And it's not just the performance, like, he is terrific, but it's also just the character is just utterly fascinating, because, as I say, he's someone who's walked away from the Jedi years prior, but he's not gone down the complete dark road. He's essentially just like a mercenary, but with a lightsaber, and I find that really interesting. And that relationship between him and Shin as well, he's also really, really good, is just fascinating to watch, because both of them...
Oh, it is.
Because they...
It is. I really kind of like the fact that it's not... He chooses to walk away from the Jedi, but he's not Sith either. It's just something in between.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what seemed to rattle quite a few cages amongst fans. Because it's like, hey, he's got a red lightsaber, he's a Sith. Like, well, it doesn't have to be.
But then also, even Kylo Ren had that in the sequels, and he's not Sith.
Oh, don't even get me started with Ben.
But that relationship between Balin and Shin is really interesting, especially because, you know, he's essentially training her to be, like, neither Jedi nor Sith, but to be her own thing. But she keeps on... It's kind of similar to Rey, where she keeps on drifting towards something else to sort of guide her, specifically something with power. So she's more willing to side with, like, Thrawn and the rest of them than Balin is. And so by the end, he's the one that just says, essentially, I'm going to go this way, you're going to go that way. Ta-ra.
Yeah, I like the whole, like, you know, it's time for you to actually choose a path now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want my own thing, which I really like. He just goes to live his own life, which is just... I mean, that scene at the end is just like, wow.
Yeah, because it's like...
He's just stood there in, like, all those, like... it's like Last Jedi with Luke. He's just, like, living his life on, like, this rocky plateau.
Yeah, I don't know much about what that's trying to hint at. I'd have to do my own research, but that's something I'll get to.
I mean, I've got absolutely no clue, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's something.
Well,
They wouldn't just show me that scene in great detail.
yeah,
for
it's one of those
reasons.
things where it's like, I kind of wish it wasn't there, because unless they recast, which I kind of don't want them to, but if they're going to continue that his story in some shape or form, unless you do it in like a book, maybe you could potentially do it like that. But I feel like it's set up to be quite big, and I don't think you can pay that off in something that's not nearly everyone is going to read or view or whatever. I am curious to see what they do with Shin, though. I think that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I would quite like to see what happens with Shin and that, but I mean, I think it'd be very difficult if you recast and stuff like that, because it just wouldn't really feel right.
Yeah,
Not just like in the series, but as to like fans as a whole.
Yeah,
as
I'm not big on the idea, but it depends on how they continue this story. Whether
Depends
it be
how they play it out,
Yeah.
really, isn't it?
because it could be a second season, or it could tie into Dave Filoni's movie that he's going to do in a couple of years, where it seems to be tying together all like the Mandoverse stuff. It's not actually called that, but I think fans started calling it that. I'm like, ugh, just call it something else.
Mandoverse, come on.
Yeah. Of course, the other big character that's brought in is, of course, Grand Admiral Thrawn, played by Lars Mikkelsen. Once again, he voiced the character in Rebels. I was really concerned with this one, though, because, again, with my nitpicky self, I haven't watched enough of Rebels to see him as a threat. And people kept on saying, oh, he's a big threat, he's really dangerous, we need to stop him. And I'm sat there thinking, could you stop telling me he's dangerous and just show me that he's dangerous? And while I like his stuff, like his introduction with the organs and all as it turns out, the zombie troopers, which I love, that was just like actual freaking magic and zombies and Star Wars. I'm like, just like give me it all. Give me all of us.
Give me it all. So this is what I really like about Ahsoka, though. It's especially when you have the whole like rogue Empire leaders in exile just waiting for their opportunity. It just gets really boring and repetitive. With this, they've put their own twist on it. It's like this guy is literally doing anything he can to basically reappear again with an almighty power. He doesn't care how he does it, even if it's dabbling in black magic and witchcraft, which it's what it is, and it's brilliant. Like, it's... You wouldn't think it would sound too great, but Star Wars and witchcraft actually work together really quite well. I
think it's similar to how they were kind of hinting at the idea of the First Order in The Mandalorian. This is very much like tying together a few extra bits for the sequels, and it is retroactively making it more interesting because you're seeing how desperate ex-Imperials are to get any kind of power. They're literally dabbling into magic. Like, that's...
and zombieism.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds stupid, but no offense, these are the same guys that built a second Death Star. Like, this is absolutely within...
Yeah, they're gonna do that. If they're gonna build a second Death Star, they're gonna dabble in whatever else.
And considering I've played a decent... I mean, I think I've nearly finished Jedi Fallen Order, and that has a lot of the Dathomir stuff with the weird magic stuff. I know it's got a name. I don't know the names. But it's a very interesting use of the Force. Even with I kept on calling them Star Wheels because I'm just, again, the Doctor Whoisms in me is like, oh no, it's a Star Wheel. No, it's something else. The Purgil, I think it's called. But I'm like, space whales that can jump into hyperspace without engines. I'm like, I really want one. I really want a space whale now that can do that. And you got to think, for an entire episode, Ahsoka and a droid are just sat in its mouth, just waiting for us for like an entire episode. Just like, what the hell were they doing? Like, it's like.
Well, I hope they brought some board games on board their ship.
Or you had,
my God.
Or you had Hu Yang recounting the events of Star Wars, because this is the first time ever that someone in this universe has said a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was like, I absolutely love that. I thought, oh, do not suggest for a second. But I see, some people start theorizing that does that mean that this entire time, whenever we've seen the opening crawls for Star Wars, it's based on an account from Hu Yang? And I thought, that's not too far out of reach, because even the original...
It's not, to be honest.
Well, no, because even the original draft for Episode 9, when Colin Trevorrow was doing it, ended with R2-D2 recounting the events of the original film. So it makes sense that a droid would be doing that, especially one like Hu Yang, who was there at the Jedi Temple for seemingly thousands of years.
Ah, yes, I can recall R2-D2's speech on it. It went something like beep 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 boop boop boop.
Or just a lot of screaming. Once again, the sound effects for the Real Podcast is presided by Mr. Dan Quinn.
Well, I was actually going to say that, like, I'm nearly over my cold, but my chest is pretty bad still, and when, like, I wake up, I honestly sound a bit like Emperor Palpatine because of the gravelly voice.
I mean, you do act like him.
I've just been kind of sat up with my hood, so like this. Something real podcasters.
something rant.
Thankfully, the medication has kicked in, and it doesn't sound like I'm a Sith
the
warlord
medication
anymore.
hasn't kicked in.
I mean, that sounds so terrible. I should probably say the cold and flu medicine.
Oh, okay, that's fine then.
No, I was a bit concerning.
Yeah, I was about to say. I will talk about my biggest issue with this entire series, because there's one character we haven't spoken about. And there's a reason for that, and that is Ezra Bridger, who, of course, appears in this. So, again, this could be me just being really, really nitpicky, But one thing I noticed with this series is there was quite a few instances where, as I say, I struggle to care about the characters. And one of those reasons could be because they're from a different show, all that development happened there. The series hadn't done enough for me to actually give a damn. I'd argue against that because the likes of Sabine and Hera and Ahsoka and the previous Mandalorian stuff did terrifically. But also because any of their introductory stuff isn't supposed to be a big emotional moment. So when Ezra's first scene is of him reuniting with Sabine, I absolutely did not give a damn. But it's because like I know why I should. I know why other people do. It's like, because this character's from before. I'm like, no. This is a completely different actor, for one. Even though he's got the blue eyes, like it's horrifying. In fact, actually, one of my other issues visually is that people with like weird colored eyes in this series look really, really bad. Like Thrawn looks stupid with his eyes. As
Thrawn looks stupid with his stupid eyes.
But it felt like emotional manipulation because I actually just I didn't care. Like we've had no time to see in this series why I should care. And it's a bit similar to, I think, when we discussed the Snyder Cut last year. And I can remember, like when I rewrote my review for that at the same time, I said some of my biggest issues were clearly tied to the comics, which I thought was a cop-out. So, like, for example, when it came to Superman with the black suit, I know why it's there in the comics, I don't know why it's there in the film, and people started explaining it based on the comic, and I'm like, no. Like, two different mediums. It's kind of similar here, where the show didn't give me enough of a reason for me to understand why Sabine really cares for Ezra, and why I should care when he finally rocks up. Again,
no, I totally see where you're coming from. I really do, to be honest, because I mean, even I was a bit like, yeah, you found your friend, good for you.
Because it's weird, because it's, even going back to the casting thing, like, obviously Rosario Dawson hadn't played Ahsoka until The Mandalorian, and yeah, you could argue the way that she's introduced is pretty badass and big, but it's still kind of, like, subdued in a way. To have Ezra's stuff, I mean, technically you get, like, the little holocron thing of him, not holocron, but like
that just isn't enough, really,
thing.
like, even a little hologram thing. You're going to need something a lot better than that to
yeah.
care.
And again, this could easily just be me, because even the stuff with Thrawn, I'm like, the series didn't do that much to make him a major threat. Like, I like how cold and calculating he is. Like, he is really, really clever. But I still don't see him as a big threat.
I think the only criticism I have is really kind of that thing with Thrawn. Like, all this time, everybody is, like, preaching what a threat he is. I'm like, well, just hurry up and show me then. Like... You're preaching this. I want to see it.
Because even by the end, all he's doing for the second half of the season is packing his many, many suitcases, chucking them in, like, the back of the Star Destroyer, and then running away.
Just throwing them in the back of the
Star Destroyer. Which, when you say that out loud, you're like, go, hurry up, she's coming now, hurry up. Baggage allowance, bugger. But that's all he's got to do, like, beyond just, like, stand there with his, like, proper, like Grand Moff Tarkin trousers, which are just, like, I don't know what they are. They're so weird, but they look absolutely massive.
Oh, I know, they're like,
and I don't like
those,
that.
Like, Tudor pants.
Yes, exactly. Yes, he's actually dressed like a Tudor, which is it's never a thing I thought I'd see. But yeah, I mean, again, Lars Mikkelsen is great. Like, I've always really liked him. Like, he was giving off, like, major Magnuson vibes from Sherlock. Like, because I love his character in Sherlock Season 3. I think it's terrific. It's also funny that now we've had Lars Mikkelsen playing Thrawn, and we had Mads Mikkelsen playing the guy who creates the Death Star in Rogue One. I find that really cool. And performance is great. And, some of his stuff is really cool, but on the flip side, similar to Ezra, I don't care. I mean, Ezra had some cool stuff. Like, I actually really like how he kind of throws away the lightsaber from Sabine. He's like, no,
I've got the
don't need
Force.
it because the Force is my ally. But I like that.
You could
I really like
put
that.
like a spin on that with like a comedy spin on that. It's like, I don't need the lightsaber. I've got the Force. And then like some stormtrooper just comes and bats him in the back of the head. Oh, a night trooper they're called in this, aren't they?
I was kind of waiting for
night
that.
Trooper?
I'm not going to lie. I was waiting for that.
What's the other one's called? Oh, yeah, it's night
yeah.
troopers because the other ones are shadow troopers.
Yeah. I don't know the names. I mean, you've got the 2 Death Troopers to pop up at the very end that are all zombified. Like I loved it. I loved the Death Troopers
It looks
so much. They're
cool.
really cool.
Like looks all like weathered and destroyed and just undead army more or less.
Yeah, I know there's a novel that kind of like does that sort of thing, but now that also means we now finally have our first full-fledged horror like sequence in a Star Wars film. I'm like, finally, I know what I'm going to be rewatching
like
every single Halloween.
Desperately ex-Imperials are to just gain power again if they're willing to dabble in what is seen as unethical. I mean, not that they're very ethical people anyway.
Yeah,
literally.
I mean,
they blow up a planet. They killed many, many people.
I did find it a bit funny though how they do just do the classic thing of a zombie where it's just like I'm like I thought they wouldn't do that. I thought that's so much of a stereotype for a zombie because I mean aside from the fact
who's
that
the
they're shooting absolutely
I'm
fine.
kicking
they die,
myself in the
then,
butt here, but who's the guy with the? I mean, he's one of the night troopers, but he's like in charge of the night troopers. But he's got like the creepy mask within the stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah, Enoch,
That's
I think
it,
it's called. I
something like
don't
that.
know, to be honest. I think like the way they frame him, it makes it out as if he's like a major character from something else because they do that a lot. And I'm started thinking, I don't know. He just looks really cool.
He does. He looks really cool, and that helmet's a bit creepy as well.
Yeah, again with like the whole samurai sort of style, it's really great.
I was thinking like what those
I really
like
like
samurai
the
masks are called, but I can't for the life of me remember.
Oni.
That's
Oni,
them.
I think they're cool. I actually know that from Tomb Raider, the like the reboot from 2013.
Yeah.
Some of the antagonists in there are like the Oni, but yeah, like overall the aesthetic is just great, and I do like how they're sort of dabbling back into that, especially after watching the first season of Star Wars Visions, where the first episode of that is of a Jedi in Hayden as like a Ronin protecting a small village, and I'm sat there thinking, I really want to see that. I want to see more stuff like that, and this series does definitely deliver on that. As I say though, I still have an issue with emotional care because half the time I didn't. But that could just come down to me not knowing about Rebels. But then I feel like it's a bit of a cop out if it's like, well, Regan didn't.
I think with the Grand Admiral, it
like,
kind of pays off a little bit. I mean, yeah, it is absolutely down to like all these people are saying he's threatening. Show me he's threatening. But then like in the last like couple episodes, he is actually seen as quite threatening. He has a pretty beat up Star Destroyer in a light speed transporter, which is just all kinds of bad news.
I really want to know who was hired to do the mural on the bottom of the Star Destroyer. just like, well, I could have you fighting. No, do you want to be my? No, actually, you can be my graphic design student. Please paint a thing on the bottom of my ship that no one's ever gonna see.
Yeah, like the only way you're gonna see that is if like he invades like a planet and you just look up and say, oh. Nice mural. Shame we're all going to die.
And even though at that point, yeah, exactly, because surely by the time it gets into the atmosphere, it's just going to blow everything up anyway, so you're never going to see it. Just seems pointless. Bloody Thrawn and his graphics design. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting slightly more, like, as I say, a little bit more nitpicky about certain moments, and as I say, that could just be because Regan didn't do his homework. Shouldn't have to, because there's 5 seasons. I just did not have the time to do that. Like I watched the first episode and I was like, okay, that's all right. That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, but it's one of those things like maybe I'm expecting too much for a show that is technically a continuation of something else to just be entirely standalone and absolutely cater to those who haven't seen it. But at the same time, the show still does a good job at making me care elsewhere. So I feel like it's just more of I feel like that's decidedly more of a criticism than anything else, because stuff with Sabine,
Yeah,
I think is really good.
I think for the
Even
most
though it
part,
retcons
it
bits
is
of
there.
Rebels.
It's just for like, well, just those couple characters really. Maybe the pacing, but I don't really mind the pacing. In all honesty, I kind of like just the slow burn Star Wars series for once.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's decidedly more consistent than Mandalorian season 3 was, like, where you did not know what the hang was going on with that until the final episode.
Really didn't.
At least with this, you do kind of get that, although I find it just hilarious. Again, because I watched this week by week, I just laughed so hard every single time people theorized who Marek was, the sort of like Knights Inquisitor that they had, like, oh, maybe it's Ezra. And I'm like, that makes absolutely no
Ezra's
sense.
playing with weird, like...
at all.
Well, Ezra's living in weird space caravans with whatever alien species.
They look like Star Wars versions of Yoshi.
Oh my god, they do.
Yeah, just like many, many Yoshi.
Oh, now,
I mean,
now
they
I
are
just,
adorable.
I want to just search the deep, darkest parts of the internet just to find, like, somebody who's just photoshopped Yoshis.
Don't do it, Dan.
Because now all I'm expecting
do
is
it.
just, like, the Yoshi sound effects. Whamp.
Yoshi. Oh yeah, like that. I preferred Sonic the Hedgehog, to be honest. Oof, he went there. But yeah, and then like by the end of episode 4, and he just turns into green smoke. I'm like, this is why I don't get that much attached to people wearing masks, because no doubt they're just going to be nothing. Like some people thought it was going to be Starkiller from The Force Unleashed, and I was thinking that because Sam Witwer, who voices the character in The Force Unleashed, does provide vocals for characters in the series, but it was never said where. And people were like, oh, it's him. I'm like, this is not how they're going to reintroduce Starkiller or also make that entire thing canon, because I don't know if it is, especially considering that episode 7, what's the name of the big-ass planet that they turn into Death Star 2? Starkiller Base. So I don't think it's canon, and I don't need it to be canon at all, because it's just silly. I never liked The Force Unleashed, to be honest. It was just stupid. I did like how you could sort of like pull a Star Destroyer down as like a quick time event. But if there's one character I didn't need in this, it was Starkiller, to be honest. I'm fine with that. And I just laughed when he just turned into smoke. I'm like, well, that's everyone else's theory. Gone.
Green smoke.
Like, you morons. Yeah. There was a lot of green smoke in this.
It really
as
was.
it turns out.
Actually, it really was.
Yeah.
Starkillers everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we missing anything else? Have I forgotten to mention anything before?
Not
we wrap
really,
up?
to be honest. I think we kind of talked about everything.
Yeah, it's just... Well, I suppose the very end, you get Hayden Christensen back as a Force ghost, which I thought... Okay, I'm still on the fence with it being Hayden Christensen as the ghost and not Sebastian Shaw from... I mean, granted, I know you can't do it because the guy's dead, but... It's weird, but it's also interesting how he's not wearing the same clothes that he does in Return of the Jedi, because he's supposed to have the Jedi Master robes that you get when you die, which I thought, that's really nice. You die, and then you kind of unlock a new outfit when you die, which sounds more like a video game than I think it's meant
like some like multiplayer unlock.
I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed recently. Okay, you can unlock a lot of outfits in that.
Congratulations, you died. Here's your Jedi Master robes.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, he's dead. There you go. It's like, oh, thanks.
Oh no, I'm dead. Oh, all is forgiven. Here's some robes.
Yeah. But I do like the sort of connective tissue with Kenobi, where the idea is you can't see a particular Force ghost until you've kind of had like a rite of passage, like Obi-Wan, was able to shed the weight of Vader's betrayal. Like, he no longer feels like he's the one who created Vader, so then he can see Qui-Gon. Again, feels more like a video game thing, just like, oh no, I am not going to show up until you've done another thing, until you've done like another side quest. And similar here, but I still really liked it because I'm thinking, okay, we can do something with this. But also, I like, I did find it funny how people immediately started saying, well, where the hell was he when bloody Ben Solo destroyed everything? Just like, did he ever rock up at that point? I'm like, we're not blaming Anakin again.
Anakin's
that isn't
had
fair.
enough.
The guy's dead. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was nice. It was nice to say that. Again, it's leaving it in an interesting place, especially considering this Ahsoka and Sabine are trapped in a different galaxy as well.
Oh yeah, it's very like.
I am curious how that's going to work. Yeah, because once again, they never explicitly said if it was going to be just one season or a mini series. I basically based it on the fact that
if they leave it at one season, I'll be gutted. Truthfully,
I wouldn't be shocked, but I feel like they'd pick it up in something else. But at the same time, I don't know if I like that. But then at the same time, all season 2 is going to be is, right, now we need to get out of this galaxy, go into a different one, and then find Thrawn again.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it would just become the whole, like, there's a rogue ex-Empire dude again, we gotta go find him and kill him. And then, like, season 3, he's hopped to another galaxy, we've now got to hop to another galaxy. 4th season.
I
we were
feel
so
like
close to getting him, but he's hopped to another galaxy.
I think if that New Republic series had actually gotten off the ground, I feel like it would have tied into this with Thrawn, where I think they're now they're the ones dealing with us. But I don't think you could sustain that for 8 episodes, which all of a sudden I feel like 8 wasn't enough. I kind of wanted a little bit more, but yeah, I don't know how they're actually going to do it. Again, especially with the Bale and stuff.
Yeah,
I
all
want
a mystery.
them to, but I don't want them to.
Yeah,
because
I guess we'll see how it plays out.
If it's, yeah, but I am curious, and I'm just happy that I'm on the positive side of things because, as I say, it did start off where I was like, yeah, Star Wars is here.
Star Wars is here.
Cool, whatever.
There is some Star Wars going on.
But at the same time, yeah. But at the same time, I still appreciate the fact that I still like the series even without all the fan service, which I don't mind anyway. I've never liked that as a criticism because, like, yeah, you can have your fan service, but as long as the narrative still works on its own.
on it. I mean, yeah, it is absolutely.
No, it's really
joyous for sure, but it's definitely not like, oh yeah, this is what the fans want, so we're going to make it for the fans. They're definitely doing their own thing with it, with added touches. I mean, Captain Rex. I mean, it's brief as hell, but it's great. And then obviously Hayden Christian, Ghost in various forms, evil Ghost and good Ghost.
Good Ghost, bad Ghost.
Incorrect.
Sorry, Dan.
I'm actually surprised they haven't managed to like make reference to that all this entire episode. Like I've only mentioned it twice actually.
Oh yeah, you've done really well.
It's really quite hidden.
I'm very, yeah.
Unlike that mural on the Star Destroyer. Oh, that's a nice mural. Same, we're all gonna die. Who did that? Hey, look, kids, look at the mural.
No, I think that pretty much covers our full thoughts on Ahsoka. Yeah, as I say, we're both gratefully quite positive. That makes a change when it comes to Star Wars, because I think every single Star Wars thing we've spoken about so far, we've been somewhat disappointed in.
I think
since we started.
I think Mandalorian,
because we've only done the
just for
Disney Plus stuff.
Well, Mandalorian season 3 for some of it, but then when it just kind of got a bit weird and it didn't really make sense until the last episode, then yeah, a little bit negative there. Boba Fett, well, we just weren't nice to that because it would just. Who cared?
I can still remember the initial title I gave that episode
The
was
lack
just
of
the lack of
Boba Fett,
Boba
but it
Fett.
was true.
Yeah, it was, to be honest. And then Kenobi, as I say, was
Kenobi was Kenobi.
It was released. Yeah, he was. But yeah, I think that covers our thoughts on Ahsoka. So thank you very much for listening. Really hope you enjoyed us. You know, we've got a ton of other episodes similar to this on our YouTube channel, so make sure to check those out. Next week, though, we are returning to the Halo franchise with I'm currently going to say until I start replaying it again, because I'm going to have to, what I consider to be potentially the most underrated game in the entire series. And, that one. No, we're not talking about the other one, Dan. We haven't spoken about this one yet.
I was thinking to myself, what Halo game? Damn, I've forgotten.
It's like, oh crap, which one? It's like, which one was the last one that we spoke about? Was it a good one? Or was it a bad one? I don't know.
There's too many episodes.
Yeah, I know. No, we will be taking a look at Halo 4.
A follow.
Which is going to be a follow. God damn it. We are going to be milking that joke until the end of time, aren't we? Yes, we are.
Really?
A follow.
See, it's just pure instinct now. Like every time there's the possibility of just injecting a number instead of a letter, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
ever
it
since
isn't
Supreme.
And then Screforum, 5 Cream,
Screen by.
Screen by. Oh dear. So next week we're going to be talking about
The follow.
The follow. So I'm now going to call this. I'm never not going to hear that. But yes, you can look forward to that next week. Thank you very much for listening, and until then, it's goodbye from Dan. And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.